Michael Rebholz says, Aftma, the loop, and the people who teach fly casting are toxic. Okay, and I explain you exactly why. And you might have not realized this yet, but the Aftma system is a real problem for beginners. And the reason for that is, in the 50s or 60s, whenever that Aftma system was designed, a couple of people, a group of people who can cast very well, defined and decided on how much line has to make the optimum cast, but only for great casters and not for beginners. And they footed a whole line classification of fly rods, and the American Fly Tackle Association's manufacturers, their intent was good, but what they did is they created only a system for heroes and not for beginners. And that is one big reason why, if you're a beginner and you buy a 5-weight rod with a 5-weight line, you can't generate a feeling for this rod, because that rod won't bend enough for you with this light of a line, because that system is designed to throw the tightest possible loop. And I made an experiment about this. I actually founded a whole rod company on this crack, the Speyvolution. And what the Speyvolution does is it leaves Aftma line classifications out of the game completely. And I made an experiment, and that experiment goes like this, that I gave a couple of my rods to people who I didn't tell what the rod is rated, and they just went for it and tried for themselves what line would suit them. And you can reproduce that experiment very easy with a body. If you tell him, buddy, do you have an old fly rod? Please tape off what is written down below on that fly rod and give me that rod. And then you try that rod without knowing what Aftma classification it is, and then you feed me back on what line rating you end up on a given rod. I'm not telling you anything about the results of that experiment yet, because I want to give you the chance of trying that for yourself. But I tell you this, the results are shocking. And the results prove how stupid this Aftma system is. It's absolutely crap. It's absolutely crap, and it's designed from supercasters, only 4 supercasters, to make the supercaster look good, but never the student. That is the first toxic lesson. Aftma is crap. So I recommend throw it out of the window. But this industry suggests to you that you might break a rod if you use a heavier line. Well, that is due to the industry not having understood control with a fly rod line at all, and it's also due to you. Sorry, but you have been brainwashed. You have been brainwashed by the tight loop dogma, by the doctrine, the stupid doctrine of the tight loop. That's the second toxic lesson in fly casting that needs to be unlearned. The loop cannot be measured. The loop cannot be defined. Actually, by definition, in a lexicon, the loop is not even... The loop has to be touching, overlapping, or reoccurring. I told you that already in Fly Q Series 1 episodes. And I have a little experiment here, or I want to show you this a little bit closer, so let me rig up the camera in another way and get my demonstration little kit out here to show you something very interesting. Can you see this? I have a model here of a loop. I must go a little bit farther away. I have a model here of a loop. This is my rod tip. Okay, this is the loop. Now, the loop is so unmeasurable and undefinable, and all people know about this loop is you have to form a loop. That stupid talk, you have to form a loop, is exactly like a shooting instructor would tell you, you have to make a shot. Okay, So, and if you ask fly casting instructors, if you ask casting instructors all over the world, which loop is tighter, this one here? Oh, I lost my rod. Or this one here? They don't know. Okay? And also, nobody can tell you where this loop exactly begins. So if I am in my forward stroke and that so-called loop forms, where does it start? Is it here already a loop? Is it a loop here already? Or is it only here a loop? Or where and when is it a loop? Because it never touches or overlaps unless it is a tailing loop. That would be the only proper loop in fly casting. That is considered a casting mistake, as you probably know. And also on the unrolling phase, when is it not a loop anymore? What is the difference between an open loop and a non-loop? Where is that defined? Where does a tailing loop begin? And see how inconsistent that is? In 2020, I came out with the wave spey video. That video, or that thinking, was instantly copied by a couple of people from the so-called Sexy Loops crew. We have to look in this a little bit deeper because you are lying in your own pockets here. It is not a loop. That is bullcrap. And thinking casting in loops will not make you the best possible caster ever. It can't be. You can see that if you compare my skill level with the other skill levels. Okay? Now, who came up with this loop? Nobody even knows that. All you know is it's called the loop. You could have called it also Santa Claus. It would be the same realness fit. It's getting quite windy here. The second toxic lesson in fly fishing are the teachings of the loop, because the loop is not real and it's not there. And it's just... Now, let me drive this thinking back to the thinking of Aftma. The thinking of line classifications and the tightest possible loop. Aftma was made with good intentions, but with good intentions of selling tackle, not in good intentions of making you a better caster. And now, Supercaster Hero Mr. XY can cast a super tight loop with this setup, but you as a beginner, you will not be able to do that. Because you will not be able to generate feeling for this 5-weight line on a 5-weight rod. And nearly 30 years of experience show me that if you have a beginner and you give him a 7-weight line on a 5-weight rod, he has it far easier to generate a feeling because he's not going to be able to throw 100 feet anyway. So the second toxic lesson in fly fishing is, believe it or not, the loop. Because it's only this is where the fly fishers get brainwashed with the loop. Where does it start? Where does it end? Why do you believe in it? And that brings us to the next and the third toxic lesson in fly casting. And that are the people who teach it. The people who teach fly casting are extremely brainwashed with this fake concept of a loop that isn't even a loop. I show you a screen recording here from the Sexy Loops man himself, demonstrating how fly fishing lies into its own pocket.
As a beginner, this is all you're really interested in, is forming loops.
Now listen what this man is going to tell you about the loops and what is important in fly casting and
Who
where
switched
they
me
are
onto
coming
it, I
from.
think, was Graham Hurd. I saw a video of him casting out the window, and he uses this. And I started using this quite some years ago now. And I realised, actually, I think now this is the best way to start somebody.
Sorry, lad, but you have that knowledge from Michael Rebholz and the Wave Spey video when you visited me a day before your best friend's wedding, Ronan, in Ireland, okay? So, keeping it real here just now. Watch how the lie develops and exactly where it's coming from. There you go.
To side, and as you can see, it forms waves that run down from the rod tip all the way down to the water down there. And these waves running down here under gravity. Now, if I start to move this rod tip further, these waves start to get bigger. There's still quite a few of them running down. And if I move that even a little bit more, or change the pace a little bit, I now get loops running along underneath the rod tip. And if I put a little pause in there, those loops straighten. Now, let's just do that again, okay? So I'm going to start here with a rod tip, shaking the rod tip, getting waves running down the fly line, and then I'm going to gradually increase this here. Now I've got less waves, but they're bigger. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to put a pause in, and those waves is now going to turn into a loop, and the loop's going to unroll. And if I let that loop fully unroll before I come forward, I have a nice loop. Now they're upside down, and you might say, "Well, hang on, Paul. I'm not going to Australia for a couple of years."
This wave spey knowledge is part of the proof that the loop is nonsense, and you could have done us no better favor than demonstrating it here for yourself. That was a brilliant demonstration. Thank you very much. You've seen that logical dissonance there for yourself. And this is exactly how the brainwash evolves out of a toxic idea.
And I forgot something about this loopy illusion here. And that is this one here. Look at this. What tightness does this loop have now, and what tightness does this loop have if I tilt this? Do you see this? So that means, depending, and watch a couple of those magazine shots, depending on from where you take that picture or how you angle that rod, that line loop, that so-called loop, that is no loop, is becoming tighter or more open, depending on the angle on where you look onto it. That's another mind trap in this toxic illusion of the loop, which is just not good for your development as a caster. What you think, yeah? Ha ha ha! Illusion! Allow me to read a little piece out of my favorite book of fly fishing Secrets of the Ancients by Paul Schullery, the director of the American Fly Fishing Museum. Even today, our history is often still presented as a fairly simple, straightforward tale of fly fishers getting smarter and smarter and discarding primitive, if not foolish, practices. In a certain light, even though we praise and revere the pioneers of our sport, we also condescend to them. They were great, we seem to say, but not as great as we are. And in this self-congratulatory view, history is all about the great march of progress towards 8x tippets, graphite rods, and direct flights to the Seychelles. We condescend on them. Let me show you this here again. This is a letter, the bully letter from Aftma, Ireland, where it states that I make allegations against Aftma, Ireland, or casting instructors, and that all of our assessors have indicated that they do not wish to be placed in a situation where they feel threatened and at the risk of defamation. I proved that the loop is crap and that it doesn't help you. That is the reason why I'm considered a threat by this organization. And by other organizations too, and I also get them blocked, discredited, and banned from all sorts of fly fishing celebrities, all the way up to the top click people there. Listen to me. What you're doing with this bully shit is absolutely disgusting. The way you behave is absolutely unsporting and disgusting. How dare you? I'm gonna take fly fishing and fly casting to the next level, to the vibrational level, because what I'm found out is far easier to teach and to learn. And Aftma Ireland can't even write casting instruction, okay? That's their level of competence. But they dare to ban me, and that is a reason why I only buckled down on all this psychology and casting, and why I started the Fly Q series. I got condemned by the fly fishing community for carrying the sport in the next level. Congratulations that you found this YouTube channel. Not everything I say here might be to your likings, but it will help your learning curve. And if you try my fixed line anchor methods and the wave spey method, it is so obvious. And I show you that screen recording here, where and how fly fishing exactly lies in your pockets. It has stopped because it doesn't do fly fishing no good. And fly fishing became an absolute social media pussy that stopped reflecting and thinking about what they are really doing, okay? And I'm here to better that. And you're invited to help me with the friendly revolution, the speyvolution of fly fishing, and used by the Fly Q knowledge and understand my videos. 3 toxic lessons. Aftma. It's like as if somebody gives you the key to his Ferrari and you never have driven a car in the beginning. The loop cannot be defined, cannot be measured, and is just there to pose in front of people a la, here, watch my tight loops, here, I have such a big instructor cock, here, admire my casting. And the 3rd toxic lessons are the people who are claiming that they're so open-minded, but as soon as there's something really new to learn and to ask questions, they fail. Mentally weak. And I can only ask you to come up with these questions and ask a fly casting instructor, for example, why is it called a loop? Nobody can answer that to you. Who came up with that concept? Who called it that for the first time? What is it good for? What is the educational value of that loop? But being descriptive. You could
that rope and we turn it overhand, that's an overhand loop. If we turn it underhand, that's an underhand loop. Over, under, okay? If we take a section of the line and bend it in half like this, that's called a bite of line. And then this is the running or working end of the rope. This is what we're working with.
Doesn't help your casting, trust me, it won't. If you want to become next level in casting, if you want to unlearn these 3 toxic lessons, Aftma, loop, and casting instructor. Emancipate your casts from mental slavery, because these 3 things are totally mental slavery, total mental slavery for your whole mindset and for your whole organism in fly casting. They're not natural. The concept of the loop and the concept of Aftma is an unnatural concept. And Alexander Grant, my big man Sandy Batten, Alex G, he knew that already in 1842. With his rod designed a grand vibration, and I ask you, where did we lose the vibration on the way? Where did that happen? Where did we lose the vibration? Where did we convert it into a loop that doesn't make sense, that is not justified, that is not measurable, and that is also not consistent and coherent with the definition of a loop. You cannot go there and say, this is called a loop. Because, to give you an example, you can also, some time back in history, the white man came and say, this black man is called an N-word. This is called a loop. The black man is called an N-word. Ha ha ha. Same thing. It's the same thing that happens there. You give a thing a name, and that puts a filter on your brain. And that filter destroys your development in casting. Because you're too fixated on the outcome all the time. And I told you this already before. Control theory says worry about the input. The loop, the so-called loop, which is no loop, is already the output. That's why if people say you have to form a loop and the loop makes casting work, is BS. The line unrolls over itself, that's all. And the only thing that matters is the radius of the curvature in front, in my opinion. And the loop thing is a fucking brainwash. And given a person who can't drive a Ferrari and watch him shooting it on the wall and even laughing about it and telling him, all you have to do is go and practice, buy another Ferrari, will not work. Check out my other videos, check out the fixed line anchor exercise, how to practice fly casting. You find the roots of the good stuff there. And the evil shit of Aftma and the loop and the toxicity of fly casting instructors out there is embarrassing for our sport. And fly casting instructors need to stop talking shit and they need to start to reflect. There's a thing called the minority rule. Have you heard about the minority rule? The minority rule goes like this. Practically all beverages on the US market are kosher. Though there's only 0.2 or 0.3 people who demand kosher drinks. But because of them, the whole market bent to the minority rule and made all drinks kosher. To know what that means for the loop, my minority is growing. And we will demand sanity in casting. And that show-off shit from casting instructors who are only standing there to pose and show how big the balls are, you can bin that. And you think I'm a threat for casting instructors? I'm a chance to develop the sport, okay? And your chance to develop your sport. I am already at a much higher level of casting control than anybody in this planet. You just have to realize that. And I don't need you to throw the loop overboard. I just can prove scientifically that it makes no sense and that it won't help you casting. And that information needs to go out there. And I thank you very much for braving through this lesson here. I would nearly say this is the hardest and easiest fly fishing lesson of them all. And I wish you tight lines when you go fishing. And don't worry about the loop. The cast will make itself if you control the process correct. You don't need no loop for nothing. Its educational value is 0. I love you. Tight lines, everybody. And please don't forget, we don't own the water owns us.